Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel BethChatsBooks. Now today's video is going to be my October book haul / TBR. Now it's the 4th of October right now and I've been waiting a long time for these books and they came a bit late, so I'm going to class this as the beginning of October. So basically you'll be seeing a wrap up of these books probably after the 4th of November, because I'm going to class this as the beginning because there is a massive amount of quite heavy loaded books on this particular book haul, so I need all the time I can get to try and get towards them. So before I go into the books, I just want to apologise for the quality of the lighting at the moment. It's quite late at night on the 4th. I've been very busy today and I won't get a spare moment till past the weekend now, so I thought I'd just film it now while the house is empty and I've got a bit of time to myself. So I'm sorry that the quality is quite bad as it is quite late at night. However, if you can bear that and you can continue on with this, then I've got a lot of books to show you. So I think there's about 12 books. Now if you watch this channel you'll know that I keep hammering on about the fact that I've recently been to Canada, and this is going to be the last centred video around the Canadian theme. So if everybody's being annoyed by that, thank God it's almost done, guys. But I thought it would be really nice. I mentioned on the I'm Back video, which I'll link down below, how I really wanted to read more Canadian literature and how I feel like I've not really read very much. So I wanted to make this an October book haul / TBR / a Canadian Appreciation Literature Month. Now if anybody wants to join me on that, feel free to comment down below saying that you want to join in. I can make a group on Goodreads if anybody's interested. If any Canadians want to recommend me any further literature than the ones that I mention here, then feel free to do so. So before I go into this as well, I just want to let you know that I went on a website which I'll link down below, which had an article attached to 20 great Canadian authors and the recommended reads from those authors for people who want to try out more Canadian fiction. Now I don't have all the 20 authors here because I couldn't get hold of all of the 20 authors, and also there was a few authors such as Robert Munsch, for all the Canadians who'll know. He's a very famous children's writer. However, at camp I read Robert Munsch books to death with the kids, so I didn't feel like I had to include him in that list. So there's a few that I've missed out, but this is a great link if you're interested like me in reading more Canadian literature that has plenty to choose from. So now that I've waffled on for a little bit too long, I'm going to go straight into the book haul. So first and foremost, you can't talk about any Canadian literature without talking about Margaret Atwood. Now Margaret Atwood is famous for The Handmaid's Tale, and I read that one earlier in the year, but I decided to pick up a different one, and the one that I've picked up in this book haul is Alias Grace. Now I hope I'm saying that right. It didn't sound like it came out very well. But this particular one, there is a very specific reason. Now on the actual website they recommended Cat's Eye, but before I left Canada there was a really big hype about the idea that this book is going to be made into a series over in Canada, and it got a lot of press attention because a lot of the main people that are helping create the show, for example the director, the producer, kind of main important people that creating it, are all women, and so they've said in articles that will have a really interesting take on this. Now I'm not very familiar with the storyline. I'm just going to read you the blurb. Around the true story of one of the most enigmatic and notorious women of the 1940s, Margaret Atwood has created an extraordinary, poignant tale of sexuality, cruelty and mystery. It didn't really help me out, but I believe it's about an Irish woman who's falsely accused of murder. Now I don't know much else about this plotline. As you can see, it's very, very thick and the writing is pretty small, so it's going to be a really hefty book. But this, I kind of wanted to get round to reading it before all the hype comes out the new programme, and eventually hopefully it will be able to be streamed over in the UK and I'll have read it so that I can binge watch it. Now also a quick reminder before I go into any of the books, I mentioned a long time ago that I'd finished The Handmaid's Tale, and I mentioned that I would watch the Channel 4 series and do a compare and contrast. Now that is still going to go ahead. I haven't got round to watching it yet. Guilty me, but I have been busy all summer, as you tediously know, so I will try and get round to do that and upload that video, so don't fear, that will be coming. But I picked that one up and it's Margaret Atwood. What more do I need to tell you about that? So then another one that I got in this book haul is an author that'll be probably very familiar to people. He was very familiar to me, and this particular book seems very familiar to me, but I've just never picked it up. So I thought it'd be great that it was in the list. It ticks off as a Canadian author and get some of that read, and also read a book I've always wanted to read. So that is Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Now, I didn't know this was a Canadian author, so that was really exciting for me. I have watched the movie. It's very dreamlike for anybody who's not that familiar with this kind of plot line. I'll read you the blurb. You know what, I'll just try and read you as many blurbs as possible, because I don't really know a lot about any of these books. I know authors' names and kind of famous looking Canadian books, but I don't know that much else, so I'll just read the blurb. So, after a tragic shipwreck, a solitary lifeboat is left at the mercy of the wild blue waters of the Pacific. The only survivors are a 16-year-old boy named Pi, a zebra with a broken leg, a hyena and an orangutan, and a 450-pound Royal Bengal tiger. Now a major motion picture from acclaimed director Ang Lee, the much-loved life of Pi is a bewitching tale of adventure and friendship, and of finding courage in the most unexpected places. So that's all I'm really going to say, because if you've watched it then you kind of know what to expect. So I am going in knowing what to expect at the end. But I want to see how the book differs. I've heard that he's really famous for kind of surrealism in his literature, and I'd be really interested to see how this goes. So I got that one. And then I'm going to kind of go through the ones, these are the ones that are kind of famous and on my radar, and then I'm going to go into the ones I have absolutely no clue about. I've not done so well at telling you the ones I thought I knew about, but we'll just go with it, you know? So the next one will be no surprise to anybody, but it'll be mortifying for you guys to know that I've never ever read this author or this particular book. And that is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Now, I know this is a beloved favourite in Canada, and my boyfriend's mum adores the Anne of Green Gables series. She has them all at home. So I'm thinking that if I enjoy this one, she's got 3 or 4 others at home, so I can just go through them if I enjoy it. I've heard that it has a lot of references to Canadian nature. It's very sweet and lovely. I really quite like this edition, actually. These are all second-hand books, by the way. I got these over at World of Books, which I previously had an order from and really enjoyed. And so far this has been the best book haul I've ever got from them. The quality of the books is very good. A few stickers, but apart from that, very good quality, very good condition. But this is quite hefty, which I didn't expect it to be, but the writing is fairly big, so I think I should be able to get through this pretty fast. So yeah, I'm going to tick this off the bucket list. So there's that one. And then the last one that is remotely familiar to me, I did link this in my last World of Books order, which was in June time. It was one of those book hauls. I'll just link all of the book hauls down below and you can go find it, because I don't know which book haul it was in. But that is Rohinton Mysteries, A Fine Balance. Now this one slightly terrifies me because it is massive, so I don't know how successful I will be at being able to read all of these and this one in a month. But this one tells a story of a son and a father during sterilisation in India. I remember being recommended to read this for my Indian history module. However, we only read a snippet because it's massive, you know, and considering it was a history module, we didn't necessarily dive too much into literature. So it's one I've always wanted to read. I've heard it's heartbreaking, but it is massive, so we'll see how successful I'll be with this one. So they're all of the ones that I had a vague recollection of who the authors were, or the books rang a bell to me. So the rest is just a fun little surprise for me and you. I've just said that and then I've realised there's just one more that I did know, so I'm just going to slide that in. Sorry, this is all a little bit messy, but I'm giving myself too much free rein on this. So this one I definitely know and I have seen around, and this is Room by Emma Donoghue. So I really apologise that I've just lied to you. But this one, I didn't know she was a Canadian author either, so this is really exciting. This one's going to be really terrifying and a little bit sad for me, because this is a tale of a young boy being abducted, I believe. One thing that is very irritating with a lot of these books in this order is there's just no information on the back, so it's left me to try and remember vaguely what it's about, but I believe that's what it's about. So I'm really excited to read this one. I've always wanted to read it, but it fit into the Canadian fiction bracket, so I bought it. So now I can officially say that's all the ones that I do have a vague recollection of who the author is or the book is. So now enjoy the free reign territory with me of all the ones I don't know. So we'll move forward quickly. So the next one I got was Miriam Towers' A Complicated Kindness. Now all of these were on the website recommended list. I have no idea what this is about, so I'll just read you the blurb. Naomi Nicol lives with her father Ray in East Village, a small Mennonite town in Manitoba. As she begins to piece together the story behind her mother's disappearance, she finds herself on a direct collision course with the town's minister, her Uncle Hans, otherwise known as the Mouth. So that sounds to me like it's going to be some interesting kind of thriller-esque type of book. It's quite short, so I feel like I'll get through it quite fast. It seems like it's going to be fast-paced in content, so I believe that it'll be really interesting. So I'm going to give this one a go. It seems like what's nice about this particular book haul is that they're all very different genres, so I think it will be a quite eclectic mix of things to read. So then the next book that I got from this order was The Stone Angel by Margaret Lawrence. Now apparently this is to do with aging, and apparently this is very sad from what I could tell online. So I'll just read you the blurb because, as you can tell with a lot of these books, I don't really know what it's about predominantly. I just know that online it said something about old age, so I'm just going to read you the blurb. In this generous vital novel we meet Hagar Shipley. Now over 90 and approaching death, she retreats from the bitter squabbling of her son and his wife to reflect on her past, her childhood marriage to tough-talking Bram Shipley, her 2 sons, the harshness of farm life on the prairie, her own failures and the failures and betrayals of others. So this sounds like a really, really interesting reflective piece. I really like stories that are about character development, not necessarily a plot, and deal with quite difficult themes but in a very lyrical and beautiful way. So this sounds like that might appeal to me very much. I'm not a big fan of the cover, but it was quite cheap. And it's given me a diverse range of Canadian literature to digest, so I can't really complain. So I'll let you know how I get on with this one. And then the next one I got is Trap Lines by Eden Robinson. Now I have no idea what this is about, so I'm going to go to the trusty blurb. No, I'm not going to go to the trusty blurb because there is no trusty blurb, so that's really useful. So, oh, there is one on the inside flap, so I'll go with that. Responsible, perceptive Will Bolton finds himself caught between the chaos of his dysfunctional family and the security offered at the home of an English teacher. A young woman, Alyssa Rutford, struggles to exonerate the deathly legacy of her mother. A serial killer and the visit of a distant cousin wreaks havoc in the delicately balanced existence of Tom, an epileptic high school student. Wow, so that sounds like there's going to be a lot of different storylines merging. That sounds fascinating, very high paced. It didn't really give much away there, so this is really, really exciting. So I can't wait to dive into this one and let you guys know. Also, it's quite small, so this might be on the top of the reading list because that suddenly just caught me. And if you can see there, it's got some really beautiful images on this. So I love the trees in the background, but then it's got nice little symbols as well. It's just a beautiful cover, so this is high on the agenda already. So there's that one. And then the next one is Alice Munro's Dear Life. Now, it's kind of a vague name that I've seen pop up in bookshops, but I don't really know who this author is. But on the website, this was considered one of her best pieces. And it says here that it was winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature 2013, so that must mean it's been pretty good. So I'll just read you the blurb. So Alice Munro captures the essence of life in her brilliant new collection of stories. Moments of change, chance encounters, the twist of fate that leads a person to a new way of thinking or being. The stories in Dear Life build to form a radiant portrait of just how dangerous and strange ordinary life can be. So that's really exciting. So that's the story collection. So that's going to be a different take on things. What I really like is having short story collections and having poetry collections, but both of those things I'm not very well versed in. So if anybody could recommend me any, don't necessarily have to be Canadian, that'd be really, really good, because I really want to aim to be more well read in both of those genres. But that sounds fascinating, and I think the cover is just beautiful with those autumn leaves. It's very autumnal, so that might be high on the list as well because it might give me an autumnal feel. And I like stories about families and relationships, which this suggests that it could be about, so that sounds very intriguing to me. And then the next one is Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. And I'm going to read you the blurb because I don't know anything about this. So, why do some people achieve so much more than others? Can they lie so far out of the ordinary? In this provocative and inspiring new book, Malcolm Gladwell looks at everyone from rock stars to professional athletes, software billionaires to scientific geniuses, to show that the story of success is far more surprising than we could ever have imagined. He reveals that it's as much about where we're from and what we do as who we are, and that no one, not even a genius, ever makes it alone. This sounds so fascinating to me because I'm really into kind of the psychology of people and human behaviour, and I thought at first when I looked at this that this was going to be a self-help book, and I'm not really a big fan of that, but it seems like this is going to go into the psychology of success and which personalities are driven to success and how they achieve that, and that for me sounds really fascinating. So I think this will be a really interesting read, and it doesn't seem to have a plot line or a kind of story like the others, so it'll be really interesting to see whether I enjoy this, which I personally predict that I think I will. So there's that one. And then just two more, guys. I know you're bored to tears, but we're nearly there. So the next one, I'm just going to take this little sticker out, which is my receipt, is Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town by Stephen Leacock. Now, again, I really love this cover. How beautiful is that? Considering these are all second-hand, some of these covers are just gorgeous, and I love that this is such a little neat book, you know, almost like a handbag book. So, I don't know what this one is about, so I'll see if it's got a little bit of a blurb. You're in luck, guys, it does, so I'm going to read you it. So, the self-importance and eager gullibility of the townsfolk only serve to charm us as Leacock gently exposes the wily duplicity at work in a community where nothing is quite as it seems. The local church is up to its dog collar in an insurance scam. The temperance club members all carry hip flasks, while farmers play off electric engineering politicians against each other for their own ends. So this sounds really interesting. It seems like there's a host of different characters in this town. I really like the idea of everybody having their own story. It's got a little bit of a Western kind of story theme, because the picture purely is giving me that sense, I don't know. But it sounds like a kind of back of beyond town and everything's not quite as it seems, and I love those kind of sagas of a community not as it seems, and there's a little bit of hidden depth there and a bit of scandal. That sounds fascinating to me. Again, very small book, so some of these I'll be able to race through and others not quite so much, but this one I already get a good sense and a vibe that I'll think this is very good. And it seems like it's going to be quite humorous as well, which you always want a bit of a light-hearted read in there as well. And then the last one is certainly not going to be light-hearted, I do not think. And this is 3 Day Road by Joseph Boyden. Now, Joseph Boyden, I did a bit of research and he seems to be a very highly acclaimed Canadian author. I believe he is of Indigenous heritage, but I'm not entirely sure. But this seems to suggest to me, based on the cover, that this is a war novel. I think he had some very other interesting pieces, but this is the one they particularly recommended. It's a beautiful hardback edition. There was 2 options online and I picked this one because I'm a sucker for a good cover, so there we go. So yes, I think it is going to be a war one based on this, so I'm just going to read you the blurb for the final time. So, it is 1919 and Niska, the last Canadian Indian medicine woman to live off the land, has received word that one of the 2 boys she grudgingly saw after the Great War has returned. She leaves her home in the snowy northern wilderness and paddles her canoe upriver to retrieve him, only to discover that the one she expected is actually the other. So it goes on like this, so I'm not going to tell you too much because I don't want to give the game away, but that sounds really interesting. I love war novels. I haven't read many war novels that have been focused on a Canadian experience or the Canadian land. I'm fascinated by literature that tells me more about the Canadian land because the Canadian landscape is just beautiful and I love hearing about it, and it makes me very nostalgic to the summer experiences I've had there. But the war twist and being able to hear their experience is fascinating because When I went travelling, I went to museums and I saw a lot of dedication to the Canadian war effort, and it's one of those countries that guiltily I forget had such a helpful impact in our fight, in the British fight against Germany in both World War I and World War II. So this is going to be a really interesting book for me, and it's just beautiful, the kind of snowy one. We've had different covers that have been very seasonal, and this is a beautiful winter seasonal one. And if you can see here, it's just, there's a gun and there's a bit of blood, but it's very, very beautiful cover. I'm very happy with that. And it wasn't this price, by the way, when I bought it. It was a lot cheaper, so it was definitely worth the purchase. So that is all of the books. I'm really sorry that there was a little bit of a messy video. I just thought it was easier to get it out there and to not mess around, because I'm desperate to get into these books and give them a read. So if you've read any of these books, let me know. If you've read any of these authors before, let me know. If you're Canadian or you're interested in Canadian literature and you have any other recommendations for me, please let me know. And if you would like to join in the Canadian Appreciation Reading Month with me this October, then please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll make it easy for you to join me in a Goodreads page, and we can discuss throughout the month how our reading experiences are going. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.